All right, good afternoon everyone, or good morning if you're on the West Coast. Today we're going to talk about the door frame stock links tab or parts. So hopefully some of you caught the webinar last or 2 weeks ago on the first door frame window, which was covering the parts and the settings. And so let's get into door frames. So here we've got our list of door frames. We talked about that a little bit with the last webinar. So let's say we want to edit a door frame here, and we're using the Coral Architectural Products catalog today. So they list their door frames basically by size and butt hung. They have different, some manufacturers have BH for butt hung, these guys are using this abbreviation. And they most always use handing, and if you remember before, our software refers to hinging, but then we also list in the description the handing. So I think eventually we're just going to have to switch all the way to just handing. But let's go ahead and edit this first door here. So it's a single door. It's a left-handed, right-hinged door and or door frame. And this is a package, so there's a package part number. This one's actually a subframe, which I wonder if they intended that because it still has an 1 3/4 profile. So this is let's actually look at this one. So in this case, we have no stock length parts, so not a great example. Sometimes you'll see a stock length for a open back filler, but in this case, there's not one. So it's a little tough to see which one will have some stock length parts. So we might just have to kind of do our own thing and start creating one ourselves. So yeah, in this case they have the filler material. So let's say that you just want to create your own door frame with stock links and not use a package. If this package part number remains here, so this is a 2-inch door frame, both the door head and the jambs. And we have a transom stop, which we covered in the last webinar. And the way this works is the transom stop, if one exists, or I'm sorry, if an add to daylight for the transom stop exists, it overrides the standard add to daylight that the framing system you're putting it in uses. So that was something that was a little confusing before, but that's the story. So now if a frame package part number exists and we have stock lengths, it's going to use both. So whatever parts are here, basically think of it this way, are going to get picked up by the software. So it doesn't really care if it's a package configured, for this entrance type, or if you tell it it's a stock length entrance. That's more just for the way to help you identify what you're selecting. So as far as the program's concerned, if part numbers are in all these different columns, there's a part number here, and if there's stock length part numbers, it's going to pick them all up. So in this case, you would want to decide what you need and what you don't need and remove what you don't need, basically. So let's say we need to add a door jamb stock length. I'm going to right-click down on the parts list little box there, and now their frame descriptions are pretty brief. So since we are looking for a stock length, I can do a couple things to filter the list for that. I can put a 2 here because most stock lengths are 200-something inches, or you can see that their part type is extrusion. So let's just do a little experiment here. If we do a 2 for stock lengths, we see 179 parts. And if we do extrusion, there's 184. So there's a couple stock lengths that are less than 200 inches. So let's say we want to use extrusion to help sort these out. And I can try and type in the word jamb. Now the thing is, it might show us wall jambs, of course. So if we do door, offset door rails, so this is for door rails. You can actually do stock lengths for door leafs as well, and we'll cover that in the door leaf webinars. So we might just be making stuff up here. So I am going to do, let's just say this is a header for door frame, offset door header, vertical mullion door jamb. Let's call it this one. So it's an FL209. That's the extrusion we want to use for that jamb. We can go ahead and use that same one for the right jamb. So we type in the part number. So remember, you can always right-click and pick it from the list, or you can just type it in. Now, if you do type in a part number that doesn't exist, it'll tell you. So now let's say we need our door head, and let's say we're typing in a part number like a 299, and that one does not exist. So it asks us if we want to add it. We'll say yes, and this is where you'd kind of have to know some information. If your standard multiplier is not there, you can just leave it at something else and change it later. And you can always change it in the final parts report as well. So we can just make up some prices for the colors here, and just go with that. So this is where we would pick the part type, and this is we could say door frame part. Actually, what's best to do here is make it an extrusion. Since it is a stock length part, the program it's more important for the program to know that it's an extrusion or a stock length. Either one would work. So if we scroll down, we could pick stock as well. I kind of like extrusion now because that's a little more descriptive. But the program needs to see that part type for a few different things inside the program, especially when you get to the optimizer. So no matter if it's a door frame, a jamb, a head sill, vertical, whatever, if it is a stock length, it's best to pick that part type here because the rest of the program is happier that way. The profile, this is more for just your information if you ever want to find this part again. Let's say it's a 2-inch. And the stock length is important. We want to tell it if it's a 289 or a 288 or whatever it is, 290. So that's completely usable too. Whatever value you put in there, the program's going to use every bit of that. So just make sure you remember that whatever stock length you enter there, it's using every 32nd of that piece. So don't put 290 if only 289 is usable. So let's call this a door frame head, 2-inch. And then we can click OK. So now I've added that part to my door head transom bar. And so we could do the same thing here. We could use a different part number. So you get the idea. You can add as many parts as you want in this screen, and the software is going to pick them all up. So let's go ahead and verify that right now. So we were using door frame number 420 ID. These IDs are helpful, especially when there's a catalog that looks like this, because there's so many 3684s, there's so many butt hungs. It's an easy way to remember maybe what we were looking at. Another way to do it is check the favorites box. And I like to click off of, you'll notice when I do check something or change anything on this row, it puts this little pencil here. So that means I've edited something in this row. And if I can either arrow up to the next row or I can click on another row. And that ensures me that it saves it. I like to do that before I close the window. And so now I'm going to close. So what I did was I changed this in the master parts list. So I went to the master door frame list, not parts list, but door frame list. Went to the master list of door frames. I made a change to that ID number 420. And now I want to apply that change to this job. The other option was I could have gone into this job. I could have edited the door frame, which is a different frame. Like this one's left hinged. Now I forget what we picked here. Let's go back and double check. So yeah, so this was a right hinge left-handed. So I'm going to be switching that. So the easiest thing to do is probably remove the whole entrance. and start over. So let's do that. I'm going to remove it. It's going to take some of the glass away. And the program just kind of takes away everything to the right of it, I guess. So we have to add glass back for a lot of the panels, but that's okay. So now I want to go to the add entrance. I'm going to tell it the same panel 3. I'm going to add the door frame. And I could add a complete entrance that uses this, let's see, how come it's not sorting? There we go. That uses this same door frame, and it would pick it up. It would pick up the change. Or I can just go straight to this door frame and add it directly, and then it's going to add that door frame in. So just to make sure, well, let's go ahead and add a door leaf real quick too. So we're going to add, so since I've added the left, what was that added again? I got such a bad memory. I think it was right-handed, left-hinged. So it's coming up with a butt-hung left-hinged door leaf. So let's go ahead and select that. And yeah, there's our right-hinged, left-handed door. So now what we're going to do is close this. We're going to go in and edit the door frame parts just to make sure it's using that same one that we picked. So here's all those part numbers I added. Those are the stock lengths. So now I'm going to go ahead and optimize, and we should see those stock lengths be added into the optimization. So I'm going to hit optimize, and actually I wouldn't even have to hit optimize to notice that. I could have hit get elevation parts and just maximized here, and then I should be able to see door jamb. So here's some door jamb stock lengths. Here's a door head stock length. That should be that 299, right? So there we see all the stock lengths that I've added for the door frame. So in order for those to show up on the final parts report, I would have to hit optimize. But in order to ensure that they were pulled in from the elevation, I can simply look at this top list after I get the elevation parts. So remember, in the optimizer, when I hit get elevation parts, it's pulling all the different cut piece stock lengths. So only stock parts are used in the optimizer. So it's looking at all the different stock parts for door frames and the elevation frame itself, and even door leaves if you told it to put stock lengths to create a door leaf. So any of those cut pieces are pulled into the optimizer in this top half. And then when we hit optimize, it's figuring out the optimization of how many of those cut pieces or how many stock lengths are required to get all those cut pieces out of. So that's the process there. So now we can go to our final parts, and we should not only see a package part number for the door frame, which is right here, the 3684 BOP. So that's the door frame package. We should also see the stock lengths that we had. So here's the FL299. I believe that was the 219. So that's where anything that's added to that stock length frame is going to show up here. You know, to the frame, door frame configuration will show up along with the package parts. And the same thing goes, let's go back to, let's edit the door frame parts here for the elevation. So it's a little confusing because this screen is this screen is exactly like the master screen, only it only affects this particular door frame in this elevation if I click the button in the doors tab like I did down here. So when I click that doors edit door frame parts button in this door tab, it's only going to let me edit the door frame in this panel for this elevation. Because I could have multiple doors in this elevation, and it would show me which panel those doors are in. So whichever one I click on, that's the one I'm editing here. So you just have to keep that in mind. Just like we've talked about in the other webinars, you need to know when you want to edit master parts and master frames, and when you want to edit the ones in a particular job, a particular elevation. So that's up to you. Once you have that figured out, I think it's a pretty powerful tool as far as how it's done. So the same thing goes here for door heads. If it's a prepackaged door head, if it's a prepackaged threshold, any other miscellaneous per door frame part, whether it's a striker or some sort of latch or hinge or whatever, that can be put here. It can also be put here. These are really the same because they're kind of generic. All these parts are treated generically. It's just helping you decide or know what's what by labeling these columns. So, and it also helps when it shows up in the final parts report. It kind of looks in these columns and it determines what it is from these column heads. So that's why it's important to put them in the certain spots. So now back in the stock links. So anything you put here is going to go into the optimizer with the exception of weather stripping. So weather stripping is a little different. That should show up as gasket material. So let's go ahead and click on weather stripping. We're going to go here and let's see if they have anything. Yeah, weathering for door stops. Let's go ahead and select that part and add that in. Now let's go ahead and close. Now what should happen is the weather stripping should show up. Let's go to elevation parts, even though there's only one elevation. I think we're in the sample job. So we're going to go to elevation parts. We've got the one elevation. Now what we should see is the weathering. Sometimes you have to redraw. Did I show, let's see, weather? Yeah, there it is. So there's our weather stripping. It's saying we need 17 feet of it. So notice how I didn't have to go to the optimizer. So it's a little confusing, the fact that we went to the door frame parts, and in the stock links tab we threw in a weather stripping little field. But that's the only thing in here that's not, aside from the details, that's not a stock length part, because everything else in here would show up in the optimizer and it would get optimized into stock lengths for your final parts summary. So the exception here is weather stripping. You notice that when we added that in, it redraws the elevation and then it shows up right away under elevation parts, which means it's also going to show up under final parts. So yeah, so it's the last thing here. It was a W part. So, and it just calls it miscellaneous. That might be because when we got into it here, so now that I've added that part to my job, basically through the framing system stock links tab, I can make changes to it, but I need to make changes in the job parts window if I only want to make changes to the job for that part. So I want to go to edit job parts. We're kind of going a little bit off tangent here, but this is important to know. So the reason that miscellaneous showed up under part type is because that's what the master parts list showed for this type of part. So if I want to change that, I can click in here, and I'm looking at just the parts for this job now. So if I make this change, you'll notice when we go back to the master parts list, it won't be there. But I can put weather seal. We have an actual part type that you can select for weather seal. So once I change that, remember how I like to click off of this row, so I'm going to arrow up to the next row. I can hit close. It needs to redraw the elevation, which is fine. And then I can hit select, and actually it'll redraw it again when I select it. Now when I go to elevation parts, I should see that weather, where are we here? Dun, dun, dun. W, oh, it's down. So see, I changed the part type for weather seal. So I updated this job from the job parts window. I could have changed the multiplier, I could have changed the price, the description, whatever. But in this case, I just changed the part type. So I did that. It updated it for this job. Now to prove that it didn't update it in the master list, we're going to go back to the W200. Oh, wasn't that what it was? It was a W, oh darn. Am I confused on what part that was? I'm going to go to final parts this time. Oh, it's a WP200, I'm sorry. So we're going to go back to parts list. We're going to do WP200, and there's our part. So notice how it's still miscellaneous here. So if I wanted to, I can change this to weather seal here. That, and it's a good thing. I can change it, and it's going to apply to every every job that I create from now on that uses that part. But also what I might do is weather seal or door stops. I'm going to change that to upper lowercase because it was all uppercase before. So notice how I can't click off of this row now because there's only one part. So I can actually clear filter, but then it gets me away from the, it gets me away from that part I was on. So when it's only one row, I'm not worried about clicking off of it. So you just have to go ahead and close the window then. So now if I wanted to update the jobs that use that part, this is another little trick. If I want to update the jobs that use that part number and I change those parts or that part in the master parts list, I can do that by going to the jobs window, clicking this update utility and saying update parts for current job. So I know what my current job is because the little arrow here next to it. I've got only one job here anyway, but I'm going to update the parts for this job. And it's going to update it. It was updated. So now I'm going to select the elevation again. And what I would do now to prove it is go, I think it redrew the elevation, but I'm going to do it again anyway. So now we can go to elevation parts. We can go to our parts list for the elevation, scroll down. Now you'll see the description is upper lowercase. So that change that I made to that part in the master parts list was now applied to this job. So there were two ways for me to do it. I did it one way first. I changed the weather seal type in the job parts window just for this job. Then I went back to the master parts list and I made some changes to that and applied those changes to the job. So you can do it either way, but that's basically how it's done. So it's that simple. So I went into the, so now let's go back to the, I'm sorry. So I definitely want to make it clear that there's a difference between editing something for the job and the elevation as opposed to editing the master. So now we're going to edit this elevation again. We're going to edit the door frame for this elevation. I am going to go back to the door frame stock lengths tab. Now let's say you need to add a detail to this jam that we got. What I would do is even if I have to go to the vendor's website, if I have to go to Coral's website and try and download a detail file. So I would go to their website. So here we are at Coral Architectural. And I went to, let's go ahead and go home here. We're going to go to the home page. I went to their home page. I went to entrances. And then they've got their different types of entrances listed. And let's just say it was this type of entrance. We have so many different catalogs. I don't really know any of them intimately. But and then I know that let's say I know there's details on this website, and that I can download the details I need. So I'm going to go to where the entrance is listed. I'm going to go to the part details, and then I'm going to see that they have door details here for AutoCAD. So I'm going to click that. It's going to download that detail for me. Now I'm not really sure what's in that detail yet because I haven't seen it. So now that I've downloaded it, I'm going to have to go to my download folder. And I'm going to go by date here. So here it is. And this, with Google Chrome, as soon as you download something, it's going to go to your download folder automatically, unless you told it otherwise. So now I've got this file. Let's just say this is the file that I know I want, and I want to put that somewhere in my Coral catalog so that it's permanently in my, that I've kind of filed it away in my Coral catalog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut this from my download folder, and I'm going to find my Coral catalog. So I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm going to go to WinBidPro, and here's my Coral Architectural Products. So once I get inside there, I see my vendor details folder. Once I get into vendor details, it's broken out by system. So in this case, I've got an entrance detail, right? So I'm just going to save it to the vendor details folder just in general. I'm not going to create another folder. So I'm going to right-click and paste. There it put my entrance details file right in that vendor details folder. So now that I know where that file is, I can go ahead and minimize my Explorer window or my Chrome. Now I can double-click in this blank details field there, and now's where it's bringing up my Coral Industries vendor details folder, and I should see that file. So here it is. So there's entrance details. I select it and I hit open. It adds it to my field here like I wanted it to, but now it could use a label. So most of the details, when they show up on the drawing, they should have a label like a 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Since I don't know what other labels are being used already, I'm just going to make up a bigger number, like I'm going to call it 20. So that's just giving it a number so that it knows what to put in the bubble when it shows up on a drawing. But let's go ahead and view that detail so that I can see what it is actually showing us. Okay, so when I view detail, it's using our software to open the drawing, and I can click in here and I can zoom in so I can see what's going on. And it looks like it's showing me a muntin with glass above and below. So panning's a little different. We can go down here and scroll over. There's another muntin that looks like a flush door panel. Oh yeah, insulated panel there. Okay, so all these different details are in this one file. So now, if I wanted to, I could say, and I put this under left door jamb. Now that detail is actually for a lot of things, but you can just leave it under left door jamb. As long as you don't put it under twice, then it won't try and open it up 2 times and show you too many details. So let's go ahead now back to, we're kind of getting into the details part of the program, but that's fine. Let's go here to shop drawings. I'm going to click that. So it's not finding some details for other parts of the drawing, but it should show me the door details because I know those are there. So now if I want to work with those details, I can actually click my CAD. If you guys already have your own CAD program, then you know you can just open it up and work on it. But if I wanted to use our built-in CAD program, now is where I can separate some of this, and I can say I want this detail to be, I might have to explode it actually. So there's going to be webinars and videos on this whole CAD program, and obviously if you have your own CAD software, there's other ways to learn that. But basically, with this CAD software, I would be able to copy and paste, move things around, delete some of these if I don't want them, rename the file and all that. So you can work with details that you download from the manufacturer's website. This tool is a little bit limited because of the lack of help documentation and all that, but for the basic shop drawing needs for most glass shops, it actually does an okay job. But that's an example of how you would download a CAD drawing, whether it's for doors or for any other part of your frames, apply it to a system in the program, and then use it in a job, and then open up the drawings and open them with CAD. So that's kind of the whole process for that. And remember, I did add them to this elevation parts just for this door frame, and not to the master. So again, if you wanted to do something where one time you were going through your master list of door frames and you wanted to configure, let's say you had 3 or 4 favorites, and you wanted to configure these favorites with the proper details, you could do that just by either ahead of time creating the file, making sure that this file, a certain file has the left door jamb, the right door jamb, or just have one file like we did with a bunch of them in there with all these things. as long as the program sees that file name here, each time you use the shop drawing tool, it's going to look for that file and open it up and put it in the shop drawing window so that you can print it or open it in CAD and work with it more. So that is how the CAD tool works just in general. It's the same thing for door leafs. It's the same thing for elevation frames. So, and if you remember, all we did was we double-clicked in there. It took us right to the vendor details folder. I selected entrance details. I hit open, and then I gave it a label, and then we're done. And then I can go ahead and hit view just to see that what I put in there is the right thing. So a lot of times what you'd want to do is, I'm going to show you one more thing for the details. A lot of times what you'd want to do is make sure the detail is right before you use it. So in that case, I would actually go to my hard drive. I'd go to my C drive. I'd find where I put that, and just to go over that part again, if I'm looking at my C drive, I open up WinBidPro, I open up Coral Architectural, and then I open up vendor details. So now you notice there's a couple new folders that it added. The reason for that is that it did the I clicked that shop drawing button on the job I was in, so it created a folder for the elevation drawings that it created, which it names, it puts the job name in as another folder, and then here we have the elevation in a DWG format, so that's how I'd get that. So the other folder was for whatever details we told it to use for this job. It puts those in its own folder with the job name, and it would show us the details here. So that's what happened when I clicked that shop drawing button back in the main menu. It created those two folders and the subfolders within them and put the DWG files in there. So as long as you tell the software where to put those drawing files, all that can happen when you hit shop drawings. And so what I was going to tell you is, if you save some files to your computer and you want to put them in your vendor details folder, and then after that tell the software what file goes where, like which one goes to the head, which one goes to the door, door jamb or whatever, you want to make sure the files are the way you want them. So to do that, I can actually use our little CAD tool to open this file. But you'll notice it doesn't have an icon that shows that it knows what type of file to use. So in Windows 8, it's going to come up and say, how do you want to open this? You can look for a program. So basically, they'll help you find a program that you can buy to open it, or you can hit more options and scroll down and see, but I don't see any of these programs. None of these programs will open it for us, so we need to tell it to look for another program on our computer. And we know that in our WinBidPro folder, so if I open this up, let's go down to WinBidPro, we know that that little free program that we include, the VCAD, is inside WinBidPro, inside VCAD, and the newest one is called NewCAD. So if I select that as the type of file or program that opens that type of file, then now I can see it. And this is what it looked like from the download that I did. So this is the entrance details DWG. Now this is where you need to know how to use basically the CAD program. And this is kind of a lot of vendors will have individual details that you can download, so it really depends on which one you're working with. But in this case, it might have to be exploded to, it's not letting me select individual things. So like I say, we're going to be using or doing some more videos on the CAD tools themselves so that you can kind of figure out different things to do with this particular tool here, but so I'm not going to save any of those changes. But yeah, the concept is, you know now how to put the detailed drawing on your computer and how to tell our software to use it in a certain situation. So the situation for us was when that particular door frame is being used, open that particular detail. and then you can just print it out if you need to, or you can open it in CAD and modify it or change it. So that's pretty much the door frame stock links tab. All the things that we just covered are really all there is to it, and the rest was in the first tab under, for the parts and profiles and things. But just remember, any parts that are listed here will get included with any parts that are listed in the stock link tab. So if parts are showing up for door frames that shouldn't be there, then this is where you need to look, either of these two places. If you need more parts to show up all the time, then you add them in here. If you always want to use filler material, or you always want to use stock length threshold or anything like that, you know how to add it now. And if it's something you always want to happen every time you use that frame, then you want to use the master. You want to be editing the master door frames list like we just were. And if it's something that's only a one-shot deal for a panel in an elevation that has one entrance or whatever, you can edit that elevation, edit that door frame, and change it just for that one thing. So that's pretty much it for door frames. So feel free to ask any questions.